Ladies and gentlemen, the topic today, Poland and the world after the Chinese pandemic. Very interesting topic. Actually, if I may, I would like to modify the topic a little bit because the pandemic is not over yet, you see? So maybe we should call it Poland and the world after and beyond the Chinese pandemic. So, and today, I will focus on the question, this Chinese pandemic or COVID-19, how much has it to do with the so-called unrestricted warfare? First, maybe I should, for those in case you are not familiar with the unrestricted warfare, it started actually in 1999. Two Chinese high-ranking military officers, they together wrote a book called Unrestricted Warfare. And in this book, it basically was suggesting to the Chinese government, to the Chinese military, that, in order to win the war in the future, they should use unrestricted warfare. Meaning, don't just rely on conventional warfare. And basically, the idea is China, compared to, for example, the US, is technically behind in conventional warfare, right? When it comes to making tanks, making aircraft carrier, jet fighter, and so on. And it will take many years for China to surpass US, if even possible to surpass. So the idea is, you don't do the same thing as your so-called potential enemy. You find the way that help you best in winning the war. And that was the unrestricted warfare. To make it, to put it really, I should say, put it straight, what they mean is, forget about all the ethics and moral in connection with warfare. Do whatever you want as long as it can help you to win a war. Okay? So, and that's why in the past 20 years, the book was written in 1999. Actually, if you look back in this past 20 years, the Chinese government and the Chinese military strategy and the whole political strategy of China towards the world or against the world is very much in line with this unrestricted warfare. So they started, for example, cyber warfare, meaning internet warfare, okay? Hacking into all sort of system of America and Europe, because United States of America has always been assumed as the potential enemy number one for China. And potential enemy number two is actually Europe. And of course, they would first try to win over Europe on their side to go together against the US. But in case they do not manage to win over Europe, then Europe is the potential enemy number two. Okay? So they would early enough hack into all sorts of sensitive computer system, network system, database system in US and Europe to find out all sorts of information that may help the Chinese Communist Party to win the war. Yeah. So I give you one example. As a few years ago, it was 6 years ago or so, the American discovered that the system, a computer system in America, containing sensitive personal data, including personal DNA data of 5 million American government employees, were hacked and stolen by the Chinese, the communists in China. So this is interesting because DNA is not that far away from pandemic as a warfare. Now, let's move into our topic of pandemic. There is still a lot of discussion and argumentation about whether this pandemic was started by a kind of, as a kind of biological warfare. We don't have evidence. There are two theories, right, how this thing started. But there are something which is clear. For example, it all started in Wuhan in China. I think there is no doubt for it. There's no other theory that people would pay much consideration to it. And the second thing is, it can either be coming from animals like bat, or a leak from the Wuhan virology lab. Personally, I believe from the lab. But personally, I believe may not be purposely, so to say, spread from the lab, this virus to the world. I personally believe a kind of accident. And this accident led to millions of Chinese got infected, and thousands and thousands, 100,000 of them died in China, okay? Now, well, actually, in a normal situation, China should immediately inform the world through WHO and also direct contact with different governments, to inform them about that and to provide all sorts of information so we can use a collective power of the whole world to fight against this pandemic early enough. But they never did it. Now, this is interesting because then we don't need to argue about evidence or not evidence. No? The thing is, now we all know this pandemic, this virus, was discovered and known to the Chinese authority and the Chinese doctors as early as December 2019. Some theories say already in November, and even some say as early as September. It doesn't matter. Let's say it was, we take the most humble version. It was discovered first the December of 2019. Now, discover meaning they know that this virus is dangerous, and they know that the virus can transmit from human to human, because that is a key. That if it is only possible to be transmitted from animal to human, then this virus cannot spread so fast. Only when it has the ability to transmit from human to human, right? So the Chinese authority knew at least in December, at the latest in December 2019, that this virus is transmittable from human to human, but they never say a word about it. Instead of telling the truth to the people, Chinese authority kept saying, oh, don't worry. Yes, there is a virus, but it's not dangerous because it cannot translate from human to human. All the way until the 20th of January. So basically, at least a month's time, they kept the secret. Now, some people say that it's much more than 1 month's time. It's September, October, November, December, January. It's 4 months' time they kept the secret. It doesn't matter. It's still a wrongdoing, still a crime to keep secret 1 month or 4 months, right? So they kept secret, and in the same time, from the December 2019 to January 20th, 100,000 of Chinese living in Wuhan were flying everywhere in the world and transmitting the virus. Why I say it? Maybe even purposely, because on the 23rd of January, the Wuhan authority, the Chinese authority, stopped all flights from and to Wuhan, the epicenter of the pandemic. But they never stopped any flight to foreign country. International flight continue to fly as scheduled. That means from the 23rd of January, although it was stopped with all flight traffic, air traffic from Wuhan to other places in China, it was not stopped. People were flying from Wuhan to New York, to Warsaw, perhaps. Anyway, I know they have a direct flight to London, to Frankfurt, and those coming from Wuhan can also fly over other cities, still reach everywhere in the world. Imagine, it was 100,000 and 100,000 of Wuhan Chinese were infected, and they were flying all around the world. So that's why this pandemic spread so fast, basically to the whole world. Now, up till now, Chinese authority could not argue anything to two wrongdoing. One is keeping secret about this pandemic for at least 1 month, probably 4 months, and stopping all in domestic flight to and from Wuhan, and no stopping of international flight to and from Wuhan. So why? Are they so careless, so stupid, not to understand it, that if you don't stop the international flight, you may spread the things to the whole world? And it did. It did happen. So why they do it? Assuming, yeah? I mean, in a way, I don't need to assume, because the fact is they let all the Chinese, infected Chinese, flying around the world. So why? Why they do it? So probably they have a certain interest to spread the pandemic quickly. Why? It is part of the unrestricted warfare. Because unrestricted warfare doesn't limit to cyber warfare, it also includes media warfare, infiltrating all the media in the world to talk for them, okay? And finance warfare, that means using, so to say, disinformation and lies, basically, deceiving information to get Chinese company listed in different stock exchange market and get a huge amount of capital to China. This is a kind of warfare also. And economic warfare with a lot of different methods, making country economically dependent on China so that they can use economy as a kind of threat in case anyone who is no longer so nice to the Chinese Communist Party. Yeah? And of course, information warfare and so on. Yeah? And all the soft power, for example, in former Confucius Institute all around the world, spreading theory, making the Chinese communist system beautiful, so to say. So China, ladies and gentlemen, under the leadership of the Chinese Communist Party, they had a master plan that to conquer the world, to be the master of the world, yeah, within a certain period of time. Actually, they have put a certain target. Before year 2049, China should overtake the role of USA as a superpower number one. Now, some people may think, well, what's the difference? US also, running the world as superpower number one, so now it's China's turn, so it's no big deal. No, it's not true, because no matter what you say, or no, even if America is not a perfect country, but compared to China, the universal value is much more protected and kept alive. And like, for example, freedom, human rights, democracy, and so on, you can find much better protected in America than in China. China is running a totalitarian state. There is no freedom of press, freedom of speech, and so on. Zero. Tell me which media in China is not totally controlled by the Chinese Communist Party. So they have been preparing all this to conquer the world. To conquer the world, you either need to make yourself stronger or to make your potential enemy weaker. And the COVID-19 unrestricted warfare is to make their potential potential opponents or potential adversary weaker. So look, they managed to make all countries, including Poland, from America to Poland, all got huge economic problem. You weaken the economy, you basically weaken their power. So relatively, you hope to become stronger. So this is part of their global strategy. So ladies and gentlemen, no illusion. This is a regime, it's a regime. The only principle they care about is not socialism, I tell you, not even that they care. What they really care about is the end justifies the means. Yeah, that means for their end, for their purpose of being powerful, any means is okay. Any means is okay, from lying to killing. Okay, so we have to be aware of that. Only when we are aware of this can a government in this world have a correct strategy how to deal with People's Republic and how to deal with the communists in China. Thank you.